we're just gonna get into it, I think. So, last week. Last week during Dungeon Dev, we set up an encounter that we'll be talking about in a bit. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot. Ended up being a little bit easy, but I think it's fine. It was thematically good. So we'll get into that in a bit, but I suppose first the party was dealing with cleaning up after the fight with Burning Man, which was a long time ago now. There was like a 2-week break in between because a couple of sessions got canceled, which happens. But so it took a second to kind of get refreshed on what was going on. They dealt with like loot and everything. They kind of rehashed. They found this ever-burning ember. It's like a black ember that was burning on an anvil inside the tent, and they like kind of rehashed what was going on there with that. Kind of recovering some ground that they already covered, just because again it had been a while. And then they camped for the night here, and struck out the next day to head into Salamander's territory, but not before talking to Brass. Ludwig saw how effectively Brass cut down Burning Man, even though Eve insisted that she did most of the work, of course. So they went and Ludwig and Sonus had a conversation with Brass about, hey, you seem pretty strong. We're going to take on Salamander. You're probably going to take on Salamander, we assume. How about we group up, travel with you, maybe? You know? And he was basically like, I don't really need your help. In a slightly more serious voice and tone, he was like, I don't really need your help, but you can go ahead and scout for us, and if you're still alive when we get there, we can work something out. And by work something out, I mean you will work for me. You will work for me, and I will take the glory of the kill, but you are welcome to take part and join my mercenary company. But that's kind of the extent of it. Like, I'm not going to bring you into my fold and then give you the glory for the kill. Like, you will be joining my mercenary company. And Ludwig was like, I don't know if I like that. I don't really know if I like that. And there was a moment there where Brass was, implying that he didn't really think anyone in the party was worthy of bringing back Salamander's head and taking the throne of Eden. And even though like Ludwig baseline agrees with that, he was still kind of like, this guy's an asshole. So yeah, he was like, no, thank you. Then we'll figure it out. So they went back, relayed that information to the rest of the party, and yeah, went their own way. Eve had a brief conversation with Seth about, the general being alive and how it was a shame, a bit of a pity that the general was still alive. And Seth was like, he's a good man and a good general, even though if he's not my equal. And he was like, is anyone equal to us? And it was a cute back and forth there. It's really fun to play characters in Eve's family. All of these kind of like these nobles who think very highly of themselves and like think they're the cream of the crop of Eden, which may or may not be true, but they sure aren't shy about sharing their thoughts on the matter. So after that, the party rested. And they headed out. I just realized I need to like once again map the party token moved. I'm gonna just move this back right there, I think. So the party headed out, started going up north. And like as it got on towards night, we ran into that encounter that we put together last week. First they ran into they approached some of the farmland. I described this as like they walked into some fields that were burnt out. There were like some charred husks of barns and farmhouses as they were passing by that just got like scorched after Burning Man's forces moved up. Hello, Wes. Welcome. Burning Man's forces moved up and they just scorched all of the Eden farmland behind them. Anything that was sufficiently far back was kind of spared, but everything close to Eden was like, we're just going to make this not useful to you. So they were moving through that. They were like, well, this is unfortunate, but we can use some of these farmhouses as shelter for the night. Some of them aren't totally destroyed. So they approached one, walked up to it, and saw that it was entirely coated in web on one, on the sides of the barn and the farmhouse. And they were like, well, that's not great. Those are, I described it as being about as thick. Courtesy of Spider-Man. I described the web as being about as thick as a standard 50 feet of adventuring rope, which caught their attention, of course. And they were like, all right, we're not really feeling this. They burnt down the barn instead of staying there after Solus. Calm down, Jameson. Calm down. Solus took a moment, the bard took a moment to pluck at the web and see what kind of bass tone it provided. Rolled a good performance check, and then he successfully did that. A nice low hertz waveform, and then they burnt down the barn. They're like, nah, we're not great with this. Let's burn the web and let's leave. So they said they were gonna push through another hex because they didn't want to be around that. Totally fair. But setting the farm on fire totally caught the attention of the spider, as did playing a little bass line on the web. Both of these things caught the attention of the spider, and it definitely wasn't just that they were gonna run into the encounter anyway and didn't roll any kind of a check to evade the spiders. So they were walking, and then they noticed, I believe it's this one. I don't need to drag the player token here. I don't know what I'm doing there. Anyway, so this whole situation happened. They saw some ghasts moving behind them in the grass. They turned. Sonus threw off a wind fireball, as he does, and did a ton of damage to these guys. And as soon as he did that, the spiders, the gassed spiders with rotting flesh, I described their chitin hanging down from their limbs, and the front of their face was partially rotted. Just delightful imagery, I'm sure. Jumped out behind them and started snapping at their face. And over the course of the fight, they didn't take. Two of the players almost went down. Solus and Eve both almost went down. And it was a little easier than I expected. They knocked out a lot of the ghasts pretty quickly. It's just striking weapons, I think. They Solus, who traditionally hasn't done a shitload of damage. He's done good damage, but not a shitload. Nearly one-shot one of the spiders and then actually one-shot one of the others. So they were down pretty quickly. They knocked down some of the ghasts pretty quickly, and what happens when the ghast dies is that turns out that they were carrying eggs for the spiders in their backs and their skin, and those eggs hatched and turned into little spider swarms that I don't remember what the stats are up here. Yeah, they'll bite for not a lot of damage, 1d4 damage, and if you take that damage, which I think only one person ended up doing, if you take that damage, then you have to make you make a reflex save. If you fail to save, you take the damage. Take the damage, you make a fort save versus some kind of venom, spider swarm venom, yeah, which I think just does damage over time. Pretty sure, don't recall. No one failed that save though. They all mostly succeeded the reflex saves. A couple of people, one person failed the reflex save and had to make the actual fort save. But other than that, they were just kind of annoying, which is what they were supposed to be. They weren't supposed to have a big impact on the fight. Some of the ghasts were killed with Eve's acid splash from her acid fang weapon, which just neutralizes the eggs immediately. They don't even have a chance to come out. And yeah, they didn't play a huge factor, but they played into the theme really well, which was nice. One thing was that the spiders were tugging along these bodies that were supposed to be used to heal up the ghasts and the spiders. Only one of those got to get used, so that was unfortunate. They went everything went basically from nearly full health to dead before they could run over and grab a snack to heal up. So that was unfortunate, but still, like, at least one did. Mostly that's all I wanted, was for them to, like, turn around, grab a snack from some of the bodies they were tugging along, and then, carry on the fight, just to, like, lean into the theme. This fight was more about theme than difficulty, although it was a severe encounter, and it didn't really feel like a severe encounter. And I think it just comes down to striking weapons, like I said, and the players doing a shitload of damage with them. Everything, like, they lowered the action economy really quickly, and also some of the attacks just rolled really poorly on the enemy's parts. So, as happens. But they did spend resources on that. They were kind of low, and immediately after the fight, they set fire to one of the spider corpses, which is one of those things that feels like a good idea at the time. And again, I'm sure that these scouts weren't going to, like, show up anyway. So they definitely saw this fire, saw the smoke rising from here, saw the flickering flames, and were like, something going on over there, these goblins. And they ran over, they checked it out. These forces of Salamander, there were scouts from the north that were, like, crisscrossing, looking for intruders, especially now that Burning Man's forces have been taken care of. Patrols have been kicked up a little bit. And so the party, like, hid, and they were going to spring a sneak attack on these enemies. But they rolled really good stealth. And Eve, the one who was, like, ready to jump on these guys, like, stands up. They were all invisible. They got invisibility potions from Ludwig. She stands up. He's like, all right, get him. And then Ludwig was like, no, let's not do that. We're, let's just relax. So, like, goblins, they sniffed around, checked out the field. Some, like, hobgoblins showed up. Hobgoblins? Bugbears? Bugbears. Literally right here. Bugbears showed up riding wargs and were, you find anything? Goblins were like, nah, nothing. Just some more of these shitty spiders and corpse of some elf. Poor bastard. Move on. If there's anyone left, they probably went east, and they took off. So, party evaded that via stealth. They headed northwest, like, just kind of further inward, but away from the scouts. And that was mostly where we ended it. So they hopped into a bush here, took a rest for the night, and found out that 2 of their party members were infected with, oh, hello, Archives of Nethys, welcome. What's going on here? We're doing some recapping the last session, and then we'll be doing some prep in a little bit. I obviously use your service all the time on here, so thank you very much. We reference Archives of Nethys for all sorts of stuff, particularly bestiary entries. It's just very convenient to pull up while on stream. So, yeah, thank you very much. But, yeah, so, a couple party members got infected with that ghast fever, and they spent a day kind of in this, they stealthed themselves in this, like, bush hideout that they found. Took a day to treat their party members, scouted out the surrounding area, and what they found was, in the last little bit of the session, they found that there's a fort here that's kind of, like, watching the hexes around this area, but although one side has been blown out, it was a fort formerly belonging to the forces of Eden that looks like it doesn't anymore because it's a little dilapidated and the back wall has been destroyed. But, so, the party is either from here going to head this way, I think, across the fort, or, head around the lake. It sounded like there's some chance that they'll go this way. If they do not, they're going to, they tried to see if there was any movement in the fort, but of course it's pretty hard to see that from a hill 8 miles away. You can just kind of see if there's general movement at best. Like, you can see if there's an army there, but they didn't get much information. I can tell you guys that there is a scout in the fort looking around in one of the towers, and if they try to approach by this direction, then then there will be an alert that gets shot off of sorts. So yeah, that was kind of the end of the last session. And now I'm gonna take a quick break and we'll move into the campaign prep stuff. I'm not really sure what we're gonna do there yet, because they're still just kind of doing overland travel. I'm gonna run a couple encounter checks and see if I want to ignore them. I mostly want them to get close to the destination, which is this island here where Salamander's hanging out. But we might prep some more stuff based around the town here. Town here, which kind of provides like supplies via boat to Salamander's lair here. And then like the lair itself, which has like some people have like built houses there. There's an old temple there, and we can talk about that. Talk about the Simmering Isle a little bit. So yeah, I'll grab a drink, switch up the title and everything, and we'll get into it.